Bungalow Bill here. Now, I've had some time in a safe zone to rebuild my adventure raft and rebuild my fleet, and I have used that time. Usually you'd expect a modifier or a qualifier of some sort for that, but there is none. Simply, the time is gone, and therefore I must have used it. As you may notice, there are no sails on my adventure raft anymore, and that is because the age of sails is over. The king is dead. Long live the king. So, what we have here is a much more modern looking boat that is totally finished and was no way left a bit undone due to cost overruns. And essentially what it is a railgun from the Tycho with the turret cap changed to something somehow even uglier. A fairly monstrous LAM system for a boat this size, with just one of the Thundershock's turrets stuck on the back to give some anti-aircraft capabilities for the time being. And 3 medium torpedo tubes on each side, carrying fairly lengthy torpedoes. And that's pretty much it. The munitions is currently very underwhelming for the size of the ship, and its velocity is quite slow. The idea is basically this ship is going to grow a bit and was designed to grow a bit to keep carrying me further through adventure mode. Although I am likely going to have to add displacement, so she'll probably gain a few meters of breadth so that the armor scheme can actually be finished successfully, because currently I realized she's a few meters too narrow for that. It's going to be a pain because I'm going to have to redo the superstructure as well, now that there's really anything in it. As well as a few meters back here on the flight deck, there will most likely be a little helipad or something, and maybe a few meters that I might just shove in right there. And with that, I'll give her quite a lot of vertical launch tubes for some missile capability, and ideally some APS on the bow, firing smaller caliber rounds for both sandblasting and killing smaller targets, and ideally double or triple, at the bare minimum, her armament. At which point, after that, then I'll start building out the fleet again, because it's really nice to have a fleet of some sort. So anyway, here are her stats: a very, very large amount of materials for not really a whole lot of firepower. However, she does run out of combat off of RTGs. So there's a lot of expense in RTGs and a lot of expense in batteries that I normally do not take.
You're in control.
So anyway, we will wander off into a harder difficulty. I believe we will wind up in warp difficulty 35. Although I don't know if going through Red Portal at the end of a safe zone actually puts you up difficulties, because I've never done it before. Since we're in difficulty 30 right now, since moving into a safe zone puts you up 15 difficulty. And I can only hope that we're able to get through, because we will have trouble against some stuff that could spawn in these types of difficulties due to our fairly lackluster armament. I wouldn't expect something like the Exodine to be able to kill us, but it's a question of whether or not we could kill it in a reasonable amount of time. I also wanted this boat to be the slowest thing in the fleet so that I can put the fleet in formation move around this once I've built it. So that's part of the reason it's so horrifyingly slow. Anyway, I'm going to pause recording because this is going to take forever. Well, we have already spawned in the first enemy, the Phoenix, which doesn't carry the most terrifying array of weapons, but will probably be able to do damage to us to some extent, at least with small caliber munitions that may get through our lambs. In addition to torpedoes, because we do not have torpedo poppers at the moment. However, we're still holding up okay. It makes some small drones, but as long as our lambs have depleted our energy too much, we won't have much trouble firing back against them. However, we have not gotten into railgun range yet. Let's see how its fire is doing at this range. It appears it's actually getting in with some reasonable success, so perhaps I should increase my firing range so that I return fire to it, because currently we're just sitting around burning energy. And we have indeed hit something with our railgun. That is kinetic damage. As the swarm enemies come in closer, we should start to begin to engage them with the laser as well. Unlike the Tycho, there are super cavitation shells in this railgun, so they will have some capability to do damage at a range like this to a ship that is largely below the water, but the damage potential is not as good as the Tycho. We're still sitting pretty at 100%. However, we are burning materials. We're burning quite a lot of materials, and that is just something that happens when you run high-strength weaponry. And in fact, railguns and lasers are relatively efficient for us because we can run them off of RTGs in the long term, and that's cheaper than burning materials. And our material burn is very much going to be up and down during the fights, because the steam turbines only turn on as our energy gets low, and then they turn back off as it gets higher. We've taken a little bit of damage. I'm assuming repair bots have to do with some of this, because we do in fact have quite a lot more of them than I usually would put on a ship, that number being 0. It looks like we've popped one of the turrets from the Phoenix, and we're getting close enough that our torpedoes are starting to strike, which is nice because they do represent a pretty good chunk of our damage, especially to craft that are not terribly capable of defending against EMP. Unfortunately, the Phoenix is burning some of those precious materials that I want to take from it by making these tiny little craft. However, I can see that our materials has already gone up, which is fantastic. We have a failsafe holding fire, but it is not on our main guns, so that's quite good. It's probably on our laser system, which is just frying those poor little swarm craft. I have to say, yeah, laser combiner holding fire due to failsafe. I have no idea where that shell came from. Ah. The Lance, which I believe is Onyx Watch. That was not our torpedo because it didn't do any EMP damage. That must have been one of the ones off the Phoenix. Hopefully we'll finish killing the Phoenix first. Let's watch this barrage come in. Oh yeah, those are getting fried easily. They don't have solid bodies on them. We'll then harvest all the tasty, tasty materials in the Phoenix and move on to the Lance. The noticeable thing about the Phoenix is it caused the biggest stutter that I've seen so far in adventure mode when it spawned in, so it was immediately apparent, as opposed to the Lance, which was very minimal stuttering. Phoenix still has a reasonable percent of health left, even if it has AI components popping up into the air, and no firepower. But it's losing altitude, and that looks like it'll be its demise, even as these repair tentacles flail valiantly. Or whatever it is they actually do.
Taking command.
We somehow had both auto and patrol mode engaged, which is a little interesting. Hopefully we get all these materials. Ah, there we go, 30,000, just what we needed. In no time we will be building ourselves into a beautiful little ship. Although, I'll probably, by the time I have enough materials to rebuild this thing again, I'll probably have to find a safe zone again, because it makes you really vulnerable to rebuild these. If I can avoid changing it too much, the retrofit won't be that aggressive, and I'll be able to do it outside of a safe zone. But pretty scary enemies can spawn in combat with you, so there's a reasonable chance of dying while you do that. Which I mean, I have actually died once in this campaign. Unfortunately, I didn't have any footage of it. I obviously reloaded afterwards, but I fell off my boat and couldn't get back on. Which actually has killed me a lot when I was doing practice runs as well, before I really started recording. I, a bunch of times, cut a hole in my boat under my feet because I'm usually not building live in adventure mode, and just sort of fell through and died. One of the big issues with the last adventure boat that I was using was that because of its hydrofoil nature, I couldn't get back onto the deck unless I was really fast, and both cut its movement to turn the jets on the back off, and went to build it and cut the masts off. And then I would have to have enough time to make it to it. It was really almost impossible. We're stability 99%, but okay, we're at quite a distance, which must be why we're having so much trouble hitting it terribly successfully. The Lance is significantly smaller than the Phoenix. And we don't close the distance very fast because we move at both 19 meters per second and we don't approach at a very sharp angle to try to avoid turning off the laser on the back, or if we're departing the gun on the front. That's a big lag spike. The Parapet. That's actually a little bit scary.
Receiving. Engaging now.
However, I do expect us to put some holes in that pretty quickly, and we're scooping up just a few tasty resources here. Don't have too many materials gathered, so we probably won't get all 1,000 just passing through. The Parapet shouldn't be able to really do much damage to us. Most low difficulty craft can't really get through lambs. And once I actually put a decent complement of torpedo poppers on the boat, which at the rate that I'm picking at materials, I should do fairly shortly, I won't feel that vulnerable, even though my armor is kind of tissue paper in some places because I didn't quite have enough to finish the armor belt. Okay, so that gun that I was mostly afraid of is gone. So these cram cannons shouldn't really do much. We have pretty good lambs coverage from above. And it looks like the Parapet is losing altitude. I don't know if she'll actually sink or not, or if we'll have to torpedo her. Looks like the answer is that we're gonna have to torpedo her. She is still very much trying. I was worried we put a hole through ourselves with our railgun there. But now those torpedoes are doing quite a lot of work. Not that the railgun hurts. Really stacking up those materials very quickly. I feel like in no time I'll actually have a real boat. Assuming I can actually kill ships. My aim point selection leaves something to be desired. I would expect with railguns like this we can make very short work with the Parapet if we actually hit her in the right spot.
Receiving. You're in control. Moving now.
And I saw a few AI components floating around, but we apparently did not AI dead her. I also still need to put bow thrusters on my adventure raft.
Receiving.
It'll stop shooting at the dead thing.
Now.
There we go, actually hitting. Not a whole lot of freeboard left, so it's a good thing that we have those supercavitation-based shells. Not that these ships ever have much freeboard. Alright, And in no time at all, I've got around 70 to 80,000 materials. So I'll just keep scrounging, and pretty soon I should actually have some missile systems that are capable of actually doing some damage. And then after that, the resources to actually finish the armor scheme that I wanted, as well as elongate this craft, although it'll probably be quite some time before she's actually done. And here we have spawned in the Viceroy, a twin guard craft. Not a particularly scary one if we can actually land a decent hit on it. We managed to there, although did not actually do nearly as much as I would expect. What I expect is the Viceroy to just immediately explode. Maybe we bounced and I didn't notice. There we go, it is very explodey. This turret is still firing to an extent. I thought that was... oh, it was one of the wing turrets. Okay. I was pretty sure that I saw frag ammo going up, so I was surprised that this was still flying. Ideally, at some point, we'll either hit its ammo storage or its main turret block. Something very large just spawned in. We'll have to check out what that is in a second. I see it on the horizon. I can check it out right now. Or maybe I can't. Maybe that was just a flak cloud. Whatever it is, the Viceroy just changed targets, so it must be coming from that direction somewhere. A Flounder. That's not particularly large. Well, we'll go kill it next. So what makes the Flounder mostly interesting is that it strafes back and forth fairly rapidly, which makes it a fairly dodgy enemy. And we are indeed shooting at it, which means it wasn't something else more terrifying that spawned in, although we are not doing so with great accuracy at the moment. It doesn't... at its cost, it doesn't boast the offensive firepower to do real damage to us, at least not at this range. I doubt these torpedoes are going to make it. We don't have any anti-torpedo munitions yet. I do have the money for it, so if we get a second, I'm probably going to add on a few torpedo poppers, because it'd be real easy to just slam a few of those in. Also, I still have the laser range being set fairly close relative to the railguns. So it'll be a second before they start firing, but yeah, there they go. Flounder, being made out of cardboard, does have a lot of effective hit points, which is good against railguns for the cost. But no AC to stop lasers. If you're not using smoke, it's also kind of effective against lasers, but, you know, if you're not using smoke, nothing is effective against lasers. And wood just isn't effective against lasers even with smoke, so it's not a good situation. However, the Flounder hasn't just detonated yet, which is actually pretty good for it. Although, that's basically all of the cram armament being down. And I don't know what it has in terms of missile left. Likely not a huge amount. It's hard to tell behind the decos. I very intelligently am sitting on the bridge. I don't know how this happened, because I'm pretty sure when I saved the game, I was down here. So, yeah, I don't know. But this is where I am now. Did we leave any materials from the Viceroy behind? No, we must have picked them up. Alright, we're definitely in torpedo range. Those do have EMP on them, which isn't the best against something like the Flounder. But they do have frag as well, which will make pretty quick work of it. And there it goes. It's time to put on some torpedo poppers. And fairly soon, some additional missile armaments to make shorter work of enemies. We have another moderately sized attack craft coming in, the Aurora. I believe is named after an actual real-world combat craft, like many of the Steel Strider's craft are. Also just makes attack runs with a bunch of missiles, and it blows up. However, our lambs is complete overkill for this type of scenario, and we barely suffer a scratch on our way to our resource zone. Well, we just spawned in 2 enemies at almost the same time. Maybe a third because we're not firing over here. Although we might be far away. We are very far away. The Coffin Nail, the ultimate noob killer. I never really managed to play against this in the campaign. Oh, we're spawning in lots of things. Because to some extent it was a little bit before my time. In the Thunder Child. The Thunderclap was another ship that was a little bit before my time, I think, at least as far as really running into the campaign, despite the fact that it was in the game when I started playing. I just did so much building and such a little campaign playthrough that many of these older ships I just never really ran into. Both of these things are just way, way smaller than us, so I do expect to annihilate them. Although, since they're small, we're going to have a little bit of trouble hitting them with rails, and this is one we're going to be testing out. Well, although we did get a moderate hit there, this one we're going to be testing out our missiles, because our long-range missiles should be firing soon. Check if they're in their launch tubes or not. They have fired. And here are their trails. They're remote guided, so at this range, little haywire, but they'll make it there eventually. And they survive a lot better in the water than non-remote guided missiles do because they don't actually lose targeting. Although I wish missile AI had like default guidance paths for, you know, like default sea skimming of until it gets within this range of a target, it'll stay at this altitude, or like default javelin, which would be pretty similar in a way, but would do a flyover and then dive down. It'd be really nice to just have that without doing Lua. That guaranteed damage from those missiles is really nice. Alright, so now I just have to put a nail in the coffin, although I suppose it's really supposed to be the opposite manner. We still must be targeting it because these are remote guided missiles. Or we're just not targeting anything. If the Coffin Nail is outside of range, that's actually true. We weren't targeting anything. And this is a moderately cheap, medium design. We haven't fought anything terribly scary yet. I'm sure it'll happen eventually. And I guess there was that one lightning hood laser craft that destroyed the shuriken for me. Those can be pretty scary. Oh, this nice frag missile's just tearing straight through, and it's AI dead, so the rest of the missiles have stopped targeting. Well, we're never going to make it to the resource patch that I was going for, so I'm going to have to find a new one. We're so slow that it's, you know, it's more about the journey than the destination. And this one looks a little scary. We better take out this pack weapon before it gets too close to us, or we are actually going to die, because we are quite slow. Actually, regardless, it might be a significant problem for me. Despite all of the detonations, it is still handling moderately well, at least until that explosion happened. Alright. I have never seen this craft before. This is one of the things that I was thinking for why these missiles should have ballast tanks. Then they would still hit. I think I have fuel tanks on them, actually. Right, I'm gonna go fix that, actually. I don't think it changes their performance in air at all, so I'll either make them neutrally buoyant or just a little bit denser. This is gonna be a nice payday, though. Let's see what we get from it. Oh, I don't think I put altitude restraints on my missiles, which is kind of fine if I let them fall through the water to hit things below the surface. Well, again, that'd be much more effective if they were in any way javelin styled. That was another big lag spike. And we're already smoking it up. Against the Cosmos, I believe that said. I just saw a capital C. Yes, the Cosmos. I may go through the green portal soon because I want to go through the blue portal and not be at too high a difficulty afterwards. Okay, good, we're still at 100%. We launched those missiles at the wrong time. Those are not going to hit. However, despite our smoke, we're racking up decent damage. And our railguns are going to be moderately successful here. APN guidance might not be tuned quite high enough. These aren't shortening the corner that well, but we did hit with a large missile there, which is pretty significant, especially against a death spiraling craft moving this quickly. Which we're even having trouble hitting with rails to some extent. We're getting a few hits in though. Our detection should be decently well tuned. I did spend a little bit of time on it. Might not be perfect, but it should be good enough. I just wish it wouldn't death spiral though. This definitely doesn't have scuttle settings. Are we doing still at 100%? We're probably able to toast these APS projectiles pretty well. We're just not getting the hits that I want. I really want a crippling shot to take out its movement decently well. There we go. It looks like we did a decent hit to balance out its thrust by taking out the thrust on the left side and taking it out of that death spiral. It slowed down significantly. I need to turn up the APN on them a little bit, so when we have time, ballast tanks, higher constant on APN. If that doesn't work, I'll put them on target prediction, which is often better for slower missiles anyway. It's often the only way that they're going to hit fast lightning hood's ships, or that sort of thing. Good, a few more missile strikes. Big disc falling out of the turret there. It's circling us so closely its own gun is having trouble targeting. Hopefully we're not going to take a shot out of the roof of our ship there. Looks like we're not. We've got a lot of battle scarring, but not a huge amount of damage. And we've stopped smoking because we're not taking laser damage, which means that our laser output is going to increase significantly. Not that we have the biggest laser, it's just a hair short of 50 firepower, but that still adds up. You do kill craft with that kind of damage. Enemy has gone back into a death spiral, although it might just be switching broadsides. Something funky's going on because it's going in a circle, and it's only firing bow thrusters on one side. Oh, that was an enemy craft spawning in. Catapult, not terribly scary. Almost no firepower left on the Cosmos, and low health. Time for me to fix up a few missiles. And as soon as we're out of combat, because I have to remove deck armor to do it, I'm going to add a second set of these missiles. We have now spawned in a moderate difficulty craft, as well as something else just as I started this clip, the Valkyrie, which is very pointy, but I don't think actually rams things. It's also very explosive. And the Fission, which I don't think I ever really played against. I know it's Scarlet Dawn, and I'm pretty sure it's in the campaign, but that's a lot of missiles, isn't it? Definitely not something I'm terribly accustomed to fighting. It looks like they've decided to kill each other, which I suppose is good for me. How far away are we? It looks like... oh, these are not mine. I was going to say it looks like a long way if my missiles are running out of fuel. And 5,500 kilometers, that's indeed too far for me to fight. So it'll be entirely between them and involve a lot of small munitions. Looks like the Fission is getting the better end of these traits. The Valkyrie, not the scariest craft. It has interesting maneuvering abilities. Wonder what lets it strafe like that. Oh, those were AI components, though. Oh, well. Maybe the fission isn't winning. And then there's something else large, which means I'm gonna have to take my eyes off this fight for a little bit. Make sure I am in automatic mode, which I am. These are the Valkyrie and the fission, I'd imagine. And what disrupted this? Ah, the hunter again.
Receiving.
Please kill it. Like, please 110% kill this. We do have more missiles. In fact, we have twice as many large missiles as the last time the hunter spawned in. So, as we were fine the last time, hopefully we'll be fine this time as well. Massive detonations that don't do anything particularly necessary because we just need to not get rammed. And that was not good. We really needed those to hit. And it looks like it is going to be unsuccessful yet again. It looks like those are movement components falling out of one of the sides, preventing it from engaging successfully. This hail of missiles must be from the fission, which is indeed showing up to the party. From 5 kilometers away. That's nothing to it, even if it takes half a year for me to do that. And the hunter's basically dead, so we can make sure that we kill the fission as well, which is flopping in and out of the water. There's no such thing as too low. Looks like a few too many missiles for us to take out, but we do a decent job. A few more lambs nodes than we probably could. We probably have the lamb's energy for it, actually, just not enough lamb's nodes to really handle them. Well, anyway, I believe that's enough from the depths for one episode. Next time, I'll pick up on scrounging a few more resources together. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the future.